Today on the show, we're joined by someone whose fingerprints are on some of the most iconic shooters in the modern era. Dan Moditch is a veteran game developer and producer with an incredible track record. He's worked on titles such as Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, and played a major role in rebooting the legendary franchise of Doom. Now, Dan is taking everything he learned from AAA World and channeling it into something brand new at Empty Vessel, a developer founded studio aiming to push the boundaries of immersive next generation shooter experiences. With that, Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chad. Thanks for the wonderful intro. It was really nice.
So, Dan, as kind of the theme with a lot of these interviews I do, I want it to be educational and learn about your history and your background and the challenges of working in starting a studio. So, going back to kind of your origin, how what drew you to the industry? How did you get your first job in gaming?
Uh, okay. So going all the way back, I guess it would have been around. Well, it was when I got out of the military. I went to kind of bounce around at a few different jobs. Eventually, I decided to go to art school, and I went into computer animation coming out of that school. Well, actually, I should back up a little bit. When I got out of the military, I sort of reconnected with some friends and family, and my cousin Brandon and I had I had like a 386, and I had just gotten this sort of like the new awesome video card that you could play the new games with. So I plugged that in. I think it was called a Matrox Millennium. Uh, and his dad had an SVGA monitor. Now this is going back like a ways because you could play the new games on it. And I think we got a copy of, I think it was Mech Warrior Mercenaries. And we spent like 3 days basically playing Mech Warrior Mercenaries like together. Like, hey, you work the keyboard and I work the mouse. Like it was it was a cooperative kind of experience. And I don't know, like I hadn't really played a lot really before then. We had some consoles and stuff when I was a kid, but I I don't know. It just kind of like it hooked me, and I just wanted to make games. So anyway, fast forward a little bit. I went to a school out in Pittsburgh, the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I did a computer. I got a degree in computer animation, and my job. And then they had like the job fair thing. So I got recruited by a place called Talonsoft in Baltimore, and they were making these kind of like at that time there was a business model to make a game that was based it was destined for the $5 sort of basket at Walmart, right? Uh, and so they weren't like amazing games. Like Mall Tycoon, I think, was probably like my first official game. Uh, but I was working really hard, on these games, and in the evenings, like because I would be working late. There was another guy there, Rob Alvey, and he was a producer, and we became friends, and he eventually moved out to L.A. to work at a company called Gray Matter, uh, and he recruited me to. He asked me if I wanted to come out and be an artist at Gray Matter,
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
Gray Matter was on my like sort of like my bucket list. I was like, oh my god, Gray Matter. The games at the time, were really incredible, and I was super excited. And that's where I got my start, and that's actually kind of how we initially that I got to work on the original Call of Duty. Was because I got loaned out actually to go work on the game as they were finishing. So I wasn't.
Wow.
Let me be really clear. I was not a founding member. I didn't work at Infinity Ward, but I did get to go to the Infinity Ward studio and sort of like so I was in the room for something pretty awesome. At the time, I was nobody really knew. It was like, oh, Call of Duty, that's interesting, and then of course it blew up to break the internet and change games. But yeah, it was pretty cool. And then from there, we worked on United Defensive, and then we joined over with Treyarch and worked on the Treyarch games.
Yeah, no, and we'll get into Doom. I'll dedicate a segment to Doom, but yeah, you were instrumental, obviously, in helping Reboot, one of the most famous franchises of all time with Doom.
Yeah.
And so you have a ton of experience working at AAA and navigating that system. So, what are some of the, what would you say, like early lessons or patterns that you learned from working on those large scale games, like you said, like a Call of Duty or Doom,
Yeah.
Wolfenstein, or whatever,
Yeah.
and then how does that approach kind of help shape your strategy today?
Well, I would say that none of like the sort of the lessons are particularly sophisticated. Like I think probably one of the most important things that you can do if you're trying to build a multiplayer game, especially shooters. I mean that's where my experience is. It's multiplayer shooters. Uh, but I think the most important thing, one of the most important things that you can do is playtest. And if you can playtest with the team, that's not the designers. Like playtest with the team every day. If you can manage that, and if that makes sense, um, that might be one of the most critical things to do. It does a few things. Um, First of all, in order to play test, the build has to be stable, right? So it has to be that there's a certain quality bar and a certain expectation that if everybody knows that we're going to be having a play test every day, everyone is going to be a little bit more diligent about testing before they check things in. So it's just like a kind of a quality of life thing there. Probably the most important thing is that everybody's playing the game. So everyone gets it. You have this sort of shared vision for what it is and this shared experience that there will be these sort of uh, things will bubble up that wouldn't have bubbled up if everybody wasn't playing the game. Because good ideas, like great ideas, come from everywhere. Like we'll sit down to write a design doc. Here's the game. Here's the pillars. The game is good. It's got to do this. It's got to do this. It's got to do this. Right. And here's our systems that we're going to have. And it's like A plus B. And that's kind of like what we're doing. But there's this C element, and the C are the emergent gameplay and systems that come from playing as often as you can. So you got a stable build, you have a passionate team, and they're all playing the game, and they all love the game. That's when this small system that you didn't think would be that important turns into like more of a feature, or like, oh hey, look what they're doing. They're using this, and they're doing this with it. We did not see that coming, and it's super fun. Let's look at that and kind of focus on that and see kind of like how we can how we can kind of steer into that. When we were on United Offensive, I was in a room with with a couple of folks, and one of the programmers actually came up with it was an artist and a programmer, and I was there. These weren't my ideas, but like the one guy came up with, he's like, well, what if we rank up during multiplayer? In other words, you start off as a private, and then you become a sergeant, and when you become a sergeant, you can do a thing, right? And it sounded like it was like that's really weird, right? But what's cool about that and how that, and obviously that's like support actions, and that's where support actions kind of get into Call of Duty. But what was awesome about that is it wasn't like some executive or focus group came down and said, "Hey, we need to steer." Our Venn diagram says that we should do this. It was people that were playing the game every day, thinking about this, coming up with like this kind of like new idea. So it wasn't like we weren't making an idea because we wanted to be new and different. It was the idea. It was like it was the inspiration of playing every day. And what would be cool? We should try this, and we did. And some of those are awesome, and some of them aren't. But anyway, that's pretty long winded. But play testing every day, I think, is critical. The other thing is production. It's production oriented, so this is probably less fun, but it's very easy to not get right. Um, Once you sort of understand what the game is, if it's a game that you've already worked on, right? Like Doom Eternal from Doom 2016. On Doom Eternal, we were able to really predict. We were able to understand sort of the pipelines, like the art pipeline. Here, an example would be uh, basically an example might be the environment art schedule, right? So the environment art team on 2016 crunched a lot. And so the art lead and I got together, and we really started to pick apart, like, okay, what's happening here? Why do we think it's this, and then turns into this? And basically, without getting into too much of a long story, we came up with a situation. We interviewed all of the leads, all of the places where anybody touches that pipeline, and we in Excel, we were like, okay, well, we'll probably do this many rooms this size, this many hallways, this many rooms this size, and then we have hero rooms, and we came up with a matrix, and everybody kind of signed off on that and said, okay, yeah, this all makes sense, and I think that's actually how it went. And then we could go to the design team, level design, and we could say, okay, guys, look, here is basically your budget that you can use, and if you go over this budget, then that's fine, but then we're going to have to hire more folks. And that allowed us to go to the executive producer and say, all right, this is the trajectory, this is kind of the scope, we're starting to understand how big the levels are going to be, we need to hire 10 more people. And it's very, I would say that if you have the opportunity to tell someone your opinion or tell someone about data and past performance, when you can let the data and the past performance do the talking, it's much easier to kind of have that conversation. And it's easier for the person that receiving that information to sort of look at, because now they can scrutinize the data. The way that this kind of netted out was we did wind up hiring the people at the right time. We made some pretty good guesses based on that data. And because we used that, all of those artists got to we got the game done. It was awesome. We had time to polish it, and the quality of the quality of life for the team went way up. Right, everybody's wives and loved ones are way happier with them because they get to see them, and they didn't just disappear for 6 months at the end.
So just for my clarity a little bit on that. So and if I'm wrong, definitely correct me. But so are you saying there was a little bit of rapid prototyping to help you understand the scope of the project, and then from there be able to derive, kind of work backwards from what the actual budget and resources that you'll need to actually execute on the game? Or
Yeah. Yes, and you really have to understand the pipeline.
Yeah.
We have to do this. We know how long it takes to do a small room, a medium room, and a large room, and a hallway. And then when we know that, let's say that we have 13 levels and roughly how big those levels are, then we understand when we're going to get to roll on, when we're going to get to roll off. So it's like you're stacking up the train cards, but also like you're not going to get them all at the same time, right? So you can only go so wide. So it's really understanding, kind of like we call it a production simulation. So we actually created a simulation. If things go kind of the way that we think, we land out here, but you want to land here. So we need to hire people to do that. And it's not, like I said, it's not sophisticated. You just have to do it, right?
Right. So then that kind of segues into my next question. So many devs will say, AAA experience changes their outlook. That might be good or bad. But for you, was there a project that made you realize, oh, this is how games are made at this level? And then secondly, what changed for you after that project? And did you carry anything going forward into, let's say, now the studio that you're co-founding with, Empty Vessel?
Yeah, I would say that on Call of Duty, the big learning was what we just talked about. Was you got to play all the time, and your designs are great, and that's what lets you start it. But the systems and the gameplay that comes out of playing is going to get you. It's gonna level up that whole experience. And games that spend too much time not playing, and there's a lot of excuses that you can use not to play the game. Uh, but I think that there's a big cost for that. It could wind up really hurting you. On Doom, probably the biggest learning was better production. There's nothing, production's pretty dry, right? But but really really good production and consistency. If you don't have the consistency with the production, if it's not happening every day, it's the usefulness kind of goes down. But really understanding like just like the so we did a thing. We did the production simulations, but then we also did sort of we called it like an egg scramble. So every day you sit with every single member of the team, and you can see like I don't know probably about 6 weeks out of their tasks, and we would so we would talk about here's what we agreed to at the beginning of the week. Here's where we are. Like today's Tuesday. Are we going to be done on Thursday? Yes, no. And it's okay if it's no, right? But we're never surprised by things. And what that creates is this sort of like this tempo and this accountability. And now that developer, if it's an artist, designer, programmer, it doesn't matter, is they feel way more part of the process. They're not looking at Jira and just pulling tasks off of a list. It's like I understand this, and I know when I need to start, and I know when I need to finish, which makes them almost like very kind of entrepreneurial. Uh, so that's kind of like the production, and then when you see that okay, we went from 6 months of crunch to zero crunch with the same team making the same game, that's paying off big dividends because not only did you get the polish, but you also like the team isn't getting burned out. Um, empty vessel, empty vessel. I would say the biggest learning there is if you are making if you're on a small team and you're making an Unreal game, you can insert your game engine into whatever. But we're making an Unreal game. You absolutely have to hire people that have Unreal experience
Right.
and are good at it. Uh, we don't really have. There's no room for sort of a napkin designer on our team. So we'll like pitch the idea. There's two of us on the team, two designers. And it's like, okay, here's the idea. What do you think? Okay, cool. We like that idea. Awesome. And then so we'll write up a design doc. We get that approved. But when we write up the design doc, uh, the gameplay programmer comes with you on that journey. We don't take the design and throw it over the fence. That person has come with us. They've given us feedback, and along the way, as the design doc kind of like it doesn't take that long to write it, but we'll throw that into our Confluence, and then we'll get notes. And because there's a transparency and a collaboration, when it's time when we get that design doc approved, they're going to be writing the technical design doc. But we've been talking about it the whole way. And on top of that, the designers were pretty technical. So we're designing the feature, but we understand the architecture of the system, but we also understand the architecture of the game. So we know how this system is going to play with the other systems. And that makes everything scalable, right? You're not building these bespoke systems. It's this thing. If we come up with a new system and we layer that in, because of how we built it and how we're going to build this, it's going to scale and it's going to play nice with the rest of the system. Sorry if that was a kind of a long
No, that was
explanation.
great. No, I love this insight, and you that's it's just reiterating why new indie, A, double A, are being able to surpass these behemoth triple A, quadruple A, as Ubisoft says, titles because there's so much more collaboration, able to streamline processes, pivot quickly, and
Hmm.
it's not you're not trying to turn a Titanic, and
Yeah,
that's awesome. That was a
yeah,
great answer. So you were touching a little bit on Doom there, which was great and some great insights there. So let's keep the segment a little bit on Doom for a little bit, and because Doom is one of my favorite franchises of all time, and I think the reboot of Doom was one of the best reimagined
Mhm.
reimaginations of a franchise I think ever done. It was amazing. I think Doom Eternal is the peak formula. I think it was like the best version of Doom for me, at least personally. So let's talk
Sure.
a little bit about your time with id Software there. So I can't imagine. So when you guys were working on Doom 2016, what were some of the biggest pressures of like bringing new life into that franchise, and then as well as what were some of the creative freedoms that you did have working on that game?
So I think probably first of all, Hugo and Marty are amazing, and there's a great, and that's just the kind of like the tip of the pyramid, and then everybody
Yeah.
underneath, it's id, right? So there's everybody is very very high quality there. So you're starting with something great, but it kind of I feel like there's a lot of things you could talk about that made that great, but one of the specific things was and this came out of the animation department, right? Uh, was the glory kill mechanic, right? And so
Loved it.
if you don't have the glory kills, right, which was just kind of this spectacle, it was like, okay, so basically you're taking Doom 2, right, and you're trying to fast forward that, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years. And how do you make it relevant now? And so it was kind of like, all right, well, you can do this really kind of like this thing, but you got to get up close to do it. And then you do it, with the chainsaw. Uh, and that's how you get your resources. So on some of the old other versions of Doom that didn't ship, it was more like I think they actually Call of Doomy is what we were calling it internally. It was more of a Call of Duty kind of like Doom. It was set on Earth, and I don't even know if I can really talk about it too much. Maybe I shouldn't. But basically, there were, suffice it to say that there were other versions of Doom that didn't actually wind up shipping, and we wound up with this one that was very, yeah, it kind of, so it had the soul of the old Doom, um, and it, but so glory kills. So basically, you have glory kills. You have to get close because you need your resources. So you do the glory kill. Now you get health and ammo, and what that does is it creates this sort of loop. I think Hugo called it your Bruce Lee in a skate park with a shotgun. It is kind of like, I think I might be getting that correct. Basically the idea is that you want to be in the mix, and when you're in the mix, you're not running, you're not dying because you have health and you have ammo. If you run out of health or ammo, you're all done. And that's it. So we're completing this power fantasy, right? Of being the Doom Marine, and the mechanic, and this is the I think this is the kind of like the gold nugget here. You never want to make a game mechanic, or I don't know about never. Maybe you shouldn't ever say never, but if you can avoid making you want to make game mechanics that reward the player for the thing that they were going to do anyway, right? What is the player's behavior? What are their impulses? And how can we guide them into having that experience, making them feel clever that they did it, but we knew that they were going to do it, right? And because they're going to have fun. It's like, really understanding kind of like the player mentality, psychology, which is not that hard because you're surrounded by them, right? You're one, and everyone else that's playing the game and you can just watch, like, oh, look what they're doing. Oh, that's interesting. And look what they're not doing. So now we have a choice. Do we force them to do that? That's usually the wrong move. Or do we steer into the thing that they already want to do and kind of start building? Because the game is gonna kind of inform you what it wants to be in a way.
Right. Interesting. I want to go back to a point that you've made at the start of your answer there, which was, yeah, you were saying, I think, Call of Doomy. So my question about not that specifically, but
Yeah.
um, is it kind of like movies in the sense of the bigger studio says we're gonna remake Doom, and
Yeah.
then there's kind of a couple prototypes or visions that are brought to the table, and then from those like portfolio of potential directions, the best one of that is chosen, or how does and if you can't share anything there, that's fine. But I'm just curious of like how that process works, because I know, like, for instance, Christopher Nolan, when he got Batman, they gave budget to a bunch of different teams to bring to the table their vision of what they would do with Batman, and then they greenlight the one that they like the best. So is there something similar to that with some of these big titles like a Doom, or no?
I'm I'm not sure. I wasn't there for that part
Okay.
of it. It
Okay.
was like I got to see it. I got to even play a little bit of it, or and it was cool. It was compelling. Like
Interesting. Okay.
it was really neat. And it was, it was dark and it was gritty. It wasn't ultimately like what they decided to go with. Like I said, I was not in the room for that, but
Yep.
I think it's almost like anything else. You have conversations, you pitch ideas, the idea gets greenlit, and you work on it for a while, and then there's check-in points, right? Did we get to this phase gate? Did we get through this phase gate? And as you continue, they allow you to move forward, or they decide if it's time to change directions. I don't have a lot more to really add to that because I wasn't really there for it. The guys that were there for it, you hear the war stories, but they're not my war stories.
Got it. Got it. So again, with crazy expectations and pressure around a brand like Doom, um, how is it balancing legacy expectations of like the original Doom 1 and 2, to then the fan community, to modern gameplay demands. I think I'm not sure if for like Fortnite, or the first person shooter model was slowly gravitating to maybe battle royales a little bit at that time. But how did you kind of manage that or balance that at Doom, and what lessons could you ultimately take from that?
Well, unfortunately, like I don't know if I can give a great answer here
That's
because
okay.
I was in production,
Yeah.
and there were very very talented designers and creative leads that were making those decisions.
Yeah.
I wasn't really around for it too much.
Got it.
I can tell you that I was in a lot of playtests, and our designers were really listening and paying attention. And we would have a playtest, and then we would have a feedback, and there was a whiteboard, uh, and they took that loop very very seriously. It was formalized, but still super fun. Um, so I think that's how we got there. It's I got to keep it kind of high level because it wasn't my area of responsibility.
That's fair. That's completely fair. So moving, so let's move on to a really new exciting chapter, which is Empty Vessel, which is
Yeah.
awesome. I'm super excited about what you guys are doing there in your game Defect. I think it's one of the hottest new titles on the horizon. I'm super excited for it to finally be playable. So um, now that you are with Empty Vessel, you shifted from, again, being at AAA studios to now helping build something entirely new and independent. Um, what kind of motivated you to take that risk? Because again, startups are risky, and it is a bit of a leap of faith. So I'm just curious what made you take that dive.
Um, well, I had worked. Garrett's probably one of. I'll say one of, because I have been pretty lucky to work with some pretty great leaders. Uh, Garrett's fantastic. So when you get the chance to work with good leadership, generally speaking, it's just my personal thing is if you have good leadership, you've eliminated a lot of risk. Uh, so that played into the decision certainly. The other thing is that when Emmanuel showed me the demo, I loved it. Like it was awesome. It was beautiful. It was a really cool idea. Um, so the game looked great. I knew we had
How polished was the demo when he showed it to you?
way more polished than any other demos that I have seen. Like it
Wow.
was, yeah, it was beautiful. Like he had a beautiful corner. He had AI walking around, that would fight you, that would flank. He had flanking AI in a beautiful environment. and you could play it like it was playable. So it was really cool. You know, so I was immediately intrigued. You know, I was like, man, you did this yourself. Yeah, it was really cool. And then the other thing is that it's an opportunity to work on a really small. I loved my time at Gray Matter, and then after that, I kind of went to bigger teams. So the idea of working on an Unreal game with a small team just sounded amazing to me. You know, like what a great opportunity. Not only that, but like kind of like what we talked about before, but there's a chance to own part of the company. You know,
Yeah.
and you just don't get that. So just it was it is an incredible opportunity, and I feel very blessed and lucky to get to be on this team and work on this project.
No, it's being an entrepreneur and having that background. Having skin in the game completely
Yeah,
changes everything
yeah,
because you're no longer just clocking in, clocking out. Like your now sweat equity is has the potential to be actually
yeah,
life changing, and
yeah,
and and it just makes you again, you just have skin in the game, and changes your perception on what you're doing.
yeah.
So that's great. So Empty Vessel is kind of describing itself as a developer founded, developer first, that's aiming to build immersive AAA experiences.
That's right.
What does developer first mean to you in 2026?
Yeah. So I would say that developer first is that your ideas, that great ideas can kind of come from anywhere.
Mhm.
Uh, we listen to the team, and so I'm a design director. That doesn't mean that I have the best ideas. It means that we can sort of listen to all the ideas and kind of see what's going to fit. It's almost like you're making ingredients, like you're making a sauce, like it's spaghetti sauce, right? So you're like, oh, that's good. Oh yeah, garlic. I like that. Okay, let's do this. So you're sort of like, but not all places work that way. Not all places are going to listen to your junior character artist on a gameplay idea. So and the other part of that, so ideas can come from anywhere, but also we're willing to take risks. Uh, if it sounds cool and we can try it and fail fast, let's do it. Like let's see. Let's not kill the idea on paper because the pitch meeting didn't go well. If it's easy to try out, like let's try it.
I
So
love
that's
that.
yeah, that's another piece of it because no one is. I mean, I don't want to say no one. Maybe someone is that smart. I'm not that smart. I'm I feel like I've
It's
got pretty
modest over here.
yeah. I feel like I have pretty good instincts, but like it's sometimes sometimes you could be sure. Like I'm sure that's not a good idea, and then you play it and you're like, oh, this is really good, right? Um, and I think understanding that you can absolutely be wrong and that you need to try stuff is very healthy. Uh, so and then there's one other thing, and that's I, there's a quality of life at this company that is incredible. Not only do they good ideas come from anywhere, and we can take risks, and you probably have some type of equity, but also we're a fully remote studio. So our CEO is a digital nomad. So this has allowed me to take my family on the road. Like we've been traveling the world literally since April. So a couple months we will have been traveling for you know uh, a year in April, right?
Wow.
And it costs way less to do all the travel, even with all the plane tickets and all of the accommodations and all the things. It's still cheaper than living in Texas, right?
Isn't that
And
crazy?
your whole family gets to like, where do you want to go? Oh, let's go over there for 4 months. Oh, let's go try over here for 3 months. Um, and it's awesome. It's so as long I think the key to that is you have to have team members that are entrepreneurial. Like this is my business, and I am going to treat this like I maximum accountability and ownership. uh, you got to get your stuff done. But if you do those things, like you're not like we were talking earlier. You're not spending your time in a car in traffic. You're either working or you're with the people that you want to be spending time with, or doing the thing that you want to be doing that's not work.
I'm happy to hear that because I'm totally in alignment on that sentiment of it's 2026. Um, you can work from anywhere. Remote is totally an option. Both of my previous companies were essentially remote, and in startups, you just have to thoroughly vet and onboard people who are, like you said, entrepreneurial mindset, very passionate, and have that you can that have trust. And given the fact that again, the kind of the founding team members that are joining all have equity or options to get equity, stock options, those type of things. That just makes everybody rowing in the same direction and go that above and beyond to make it cross the finish line. So I guess that kind of answers my question I was going to ask you of like, as a new studio, what kind of, skills or mindsets that you, that are essential. And I'm assuming I'm answering that my own question, which is, they have to be hungry and they have to be responsible and
Yeah,
kind of that entrepreneurial mindset.
I think. Okay, yeah. So the yeah, you have to be entrepreneurial, but you also need to, and you need to have an incredible work ethic. If
Mhm.
Because you aren't going to know, because it's such a small team, it's very unlikely. I'll say it this way: it's very unlikely that you are going to have solved the problem that you need to solve right now in the past. Maybe you did, and that's great. If you already solved that problem, you know how to do it. Fantastic. But a lot of the problems that we solve, we're solving for the first time. So you kind of some level of expertise is and experience, right? Like, so do you have the experience or the expertise? No. Can you get it quickly? Because we gotta keep moving. We gotta keep iterating. We need to be able to rapidly prototype a thing and decide if it's good, and then we need to make it. And as you know, there's actually a big delta between where we were with the team sort of a year ago and where we are now. The prototypes that we're building now are infinitely more shippable than they were a year ago because our process continues to get better because it has to, because we can't afford the technical debt. And I think sometimes when you have a big studio with really, really big budgets, you can, sometimes you can kind of get away with that a little bit more. But when you're in a small team, those things matter, and we pay attention. And I think you sort of develop these really good habits that could probably benefit any organization. But we do it out of necessity.
I see a lot of the initial founding people listed on your current website. Is a lot of the team is from id Software. Did you have the opportunity to work with like a lot of the people on your team currently, or I know you said Garrett um, and Emmanuel. Did the other members? Did you have previous experience working with them too, or no?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alex too. Our art director. Yeah, it's not a big group. I mean, the whole industry is pretty small. If you worked
Yeah.
at the same company, like yeah, you probably been to dinner or events with everybody.
That's critical when for people listening when forming a new studio, raising money. That's one of the checklist items that they want to see is that a bulk of the team has had previous experience working and shipping titles. So you already have that chemistry and the quirks already worked out. You know how everybody what makes everybody tick, and so that's really cool to see that you guys have that history experience working together.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Um, so a little bit of looking forward here. What are you most excited about with like where you're at right now on Defect? Even if you can't fully reveal all of the details, what do you make feels where are you at? Where, like this is worth it. Like you're super excited and passionate about it, and you know like the stars are all aligning for you right now on the project.
Okay, so we are making. uh, a cyberpunk SWAT sim. That's what this game is, and it is going to be. We are making it for an audience that is going to love that style of game,
Mhm.
and we are unapologetic about who it may not be for. Right? We want to make the best experience for this audience. This is what this is not is a vanilla shooter, right? So, uh, and what's exciting about that is it's special. Like this is gonna feel like Defect, and you might love it, and you might hate it. I think millions and millions of people are gonna love it, for because that's a strength. It's not a weakness. Like we are zeroing in on this experience, and it's gonna be awesome, and it's gonna be yeah. I can't talk about a lot of the specifics, but a lot of the systems are are going to give you a particular flavor. Um, and I think people are really going to love it. That's pretty general. I wish I could be a little more specific about it, but it
That's
but
totally fine.
we are definitely ticking the boxes. SWAT sim cyberpunk, and it's going to be a very solid experience in that genre.
Um, I was going to ask you a question that you probably can't answer, which is just, do you have any rough timelines of when? I've seen some stuff on Steam, which is sign up for wish list of being able to play it. Uh, is there general timelines of like sometime this, maybe this summer the community gets to play it? If you can't mention or touch on that,
Nah,
totally fine.
I
Can't touch. That's fine.
yeah yeah can't talk about that one.
NDA, cool, totally cool. Had to
Yeah
ask.
yeah
Um, so, talking a little bit general about shooters, and I talked a little bit of this with on my last podcast with Robert Bowling. Um, so, what would you like to see in the shooter genre like evolve in, let's say, over the next maybe 5 to 10 years, and how do you hope kind of your studio contributes to that?
so this is kind of going back to the so I think there's some great games out there, and they're kind of like right now, and they're sort of they have a niche, and they're being great at it. And I think some of the games that have failed recently, maybe I don't know, but I'm saying maybe they didn't pick a lane, kind of. Uh, there's a kind of like
Try to appeal to everyone.
they try to appeal to everyone, or they're like this worked, make it more like this.
I
Um,
know.
right? And I think gamers will sniff that out about that fast. Like they
Yeah,
will know immediately. Oh, you're doing it a lot like this. So
yeah.
I feel like we have the ability, and we have the technology, and we have the creativity to make wonderful games. We need to make decisions that make them very specific. Like this is what this game is. This is what this game isn't. And I feel like when you if you look at the games that have been super successful recently, they most of them, if not all of them, have that in common. Uh, they've decided to do a thing, and they do it really really well. And maybe some of the ones that didn't really kind of they landed off footed. Uh, Maybe they were a victim of like they had like an identity crisis. Maybe they weren't finding their niche, or they were too close to something else to make. There was like an uncanny valley of sort of it's kind of just this with new characters. Um, so yeah, I think it's being okay with not appealing to everyone. Um, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that, because obviously we want to. I think that you can absolutely appeal to a massive audience without appealing to everyone, and then and you're being true to those fans.
Uh, I mean, I totally agree, and I won't say names, but I think certain shooters who were a victim of going down that path ultimately hurt their brand and ultimately the size of the player base of the community, and they ended up trying to appease everybody and appease nobody. And I think staying true to your golden formula, if you're fortunate enough to be able to bring to market that golden formula, you know, um, stay true to that, like a CS:GO as an example.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and just to be clear, I just want to kind of say this out loud. I, I absolutely do not want to disparage any group or any product, because there's so much. No, but seriously, there's so much heart and passion that goes
yes,
into creating something,
totally.
and it's crushing. It's crushing to see, like a game fail, or a
Totally.
or a studio fail. So like, it's I just want to make sure to kind of to say that, like,
Totally.
it's terrible whenever those things happen, and I don't know why things fail or don't fail. These are my suspicions, and it sucks to see anybody not do well.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, the community can get very, I would say, passionate, and sometimes forget that there are real people behind, these games. There's
Yeah,
families, real, like, so if, to your point, if a game performs poorly, people pour their heart into that, and that could mean closing that studio or mass layoffs or what have you. So no, it's we ultimately we always want
yeah.
things to be successful and go well. So, speaking a little bit about um, advice for kind of the future generation, or even people who are looking to do their take build their own studio. Um, what advice would you give them about timing, mindset, decision making, things of that nature that you could pass on to them that could help them with their career?
um I would say, in no particular order, right? Strive to be valuable, not important. um if you do that, if that's your if your headspace is, how do I add the most value to my team, you'll be held in high esteem. If And there's a big difference between, I want to be in charge, I want to be important, and I want to add value, and they both might get you to the same place, but in a different way. I would say, take every opportunity to add value, but also be a really good teammate. Be fun, be helpful, build good relationships. You have a limited window with the team members, these wonderful, talented people, and you're so lucky because you're making video games, right? Like, you're already very, very lucky. Appreciate where you are, and appreciate the people that are around you, because the relationships that you build now are going to give you more opportunities later than your resume ever will, right?
Absolutely.
Uh, uh, and then I guess just, you should always kind of be networking. It's a thing that most of us don't do, but it's important, and you should do it. Grow your network, especially if you want to. If you want to, if your ambition is to start a studio at some point, then probably what you should be doing, if unless you're building your own engine, you're going to be working in Unity, or you're going to be working in Unreal, right? So find a studio that is in the engine that you want to build, and work on that. Don't go work at id Software and learn id Tech if you want to someday start an Unreal game,
That's good
right?
advice.
Uh, right? Because, like, when there's 12 of you, you better know Unreal, and you better really know Unreal, because you're going to be wearing a lot of hats. Like, I can make sound and VFX. They're not great, but I can do it. Uh, you know, uh, and when you're at a big company, you're not gonna. You Big companies tend to have lots of specialists, so you kind of stay in your lane. And I guess the other thing would be, if that is your ambition, then build it. Build something now, and it probably won't be good the first time, but you're going to learn a lot from your mistakes. You're going to learn more from your mistakes, initially, and then you're not learning with somebody else's money. Like, you're learning kind of like your own time, and then seek out the other people that are like minded. Like, oh, hey, look, there's a group of people that are making a video game over here, or the hobbyists. Like, those are your people, right?
right.
because they're the ones that are spending their off time and that's their passion. And then of course like the super talented people that are working at your company, because in 3 years who knows where you'll be. Uh, yeah.
That's
So
great. No,
it's
that's great
yeah.
advice. That's great. So last few questions here as we wind down, and again, thank you so much for your time and amazing insights. So some fun easy questions to generally chat about in the pop culture space. So there's been some big relaunches, I would say. So we're going to talk a little bit about movies here. Get your hot takes on them. So first one being, have you seen Predator Badlands?
I,
And
I
then the second
hmm.
movie is the new James Gunn Superman. Both were kind of reboots to those IPs, and just
Yeah.
gotta have your hot takes on them.
So I want to. I have not seen. I feel shame. I have not seen. I love Predator, and I haven't seen Badlands.
Okay.
Um, I loved Superman.
Yep.
It's very. I loved it. It felt like watching a comic book. It was really cool. It definitely had its own style. It definitely took risks. It was doing its own thing. I thought it was fantastic. It was fresh. Uh, I really enjoyed Superman. Um,
Yeah, I thought it was great. I do love Henry Cavill, of course, and I love
yeah,
the Hans Zimmer score and everything about that one. But ultimately, knowing that they want to, you know, separate themselves and establish a new vision, and especially James Gunn. Like James Gunn, you know what you're going to get with James Gunn. He's got his formula, which is the found family formula, which I love. Like I love, yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy 1
yep,
and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 are some of the best
yeah,
Marvel movies of the whole of everything that they have. So I liked it. For me, I would give it a solid like 7 to 8 score. I liked it. I
yeah,
think the future films are going to be a lot better. I always think it's hard when you're first kind of having to lay the initial groundwork and there's a
yeah,
lot of expectations. But I think like Supergirl already kind of looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. You have Lobo, that's going to be hilarious. Um, and then like the Peacemaker show was really great and hilarious, kind
yeah,
of like an edgy boys type show. So
yeah,
I'm a big fan of what he's got cooking, and I love that he's also not making that the entire tone of the DCU has to be James Gunn, meaning like
yes,
Clayface is going to be its own hard, serious R-rated, horror film with its own
yeah,
voice, and so
yeah,
there's lots of room to play in the sandbox and let
yes,
directors make their own
yeah,
voice with that.
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
think that's I'm super excited about the new DCU. Well, thank you so much again for your time today, Dan. That was awesome to hear your story and your insights and learning all about your career. So I really appreciate the time for you taking to sit down, and this was a pleasure.